One of the leading AI robotic companies producing humanoid bots capable of human-like movements and behaviors just dropped a very impressive demo. This next generation bipedal bot is called Neo, and they have plans for full-scale production next year. What's very unique about this company 1X is their strategy to go straight to the home market. In the interview I did with CEO Bert Bornick, he said that any humanoid company not targeting the home ahead of the factory is making a massive mistake. So we have Scott Walter joining us. He's a two-time robotics company founder, and he's going to give us reaction to these new videos that 1X just dropped. Welcome, Scott. Thank you for joining me.
Hello, Herbert, and that was a rather interesting video. We've heard about Neo for a while. That we know there was a design. We'd seen probably some CGI and a few other things of what it was going to look like. Some rumblings that it might have been released early in the summer. Yeah. And then we didn't hear anything. But then the past few days, there was like some rumors that something was going to come. And Bernd said that it's not weeks or months away, but days. And that day was today. And it's pretty impressive what they have, as we'll see in the teaser clip that's there of what's going on. We're going to have to do a little bit of reading between the lines. I mean, we don't know exactly everything that's going on. But the one comment I had is when I looked at it is that everyone was commenting, oh, it's just a guy in a suit. And when you start getting comments like it's a guy in a suit, it's just past what I call the humanoid Turing test. It's just so unbelievable that you're just like, you cannot believe this can be real. Now, how they've actually trained it and everything like that, we don't have enough specifics. My understanding is we're going to find a little bit more from Bernd later today in some threads to exactly know what's going on. So I think whatever assumptions people are making that it's a canned demo, you might want to hold off on those assumptions. There's a good chance it's actually doing a lot more there than you think it is. But yeah, let's go ahead and take a look.
Okay, thank you so much, Scott. So let's get right to that demo. So first of all, this is what 1X dropped. They sent a post on X introducing, they're calling it Neo Beta. And again, we'll compare this to the first bot that they had, Eve, which had wheels, which had pinchers. Now this is their first humanoid designed for humans, built for the home. Let's watch the video here. Hold on. What do you think, Scott?
Well, I mean, the first thing here we're seeing is that it's almost like reading the intent rather than being told what to do, and uses a little bit of sign language to communicate to the human. Those hands are impressive. Remember, they just had pinchers before. Those hands are very, very impressive. And the size is, I believe, 5'5", which is about right for the home. You don't want necessarily a 6-footer going around there. And that is about 50th percentile anyway. The one thing that people pointed out is like, well, the feet are planted in the floor, so it doesn't look like it's able to walk. So, we're going to see that there is proof of that it can walk. But the one thing that Bernd talked about in our interview is that how he doesn't really think of the legs as walking as so much as manipulating the ground, right? And if you kind of look at what's going to be beginning there, you sort of see that they're planted down there, but the legs are very key and very important to the action of picking up that backpack. You see how smoothly integrated it is. And this is why everyone says it's got to be a guy in a suit, because all the movement is natural. It looks at what's going on the legs going down there to pick it up. Everything is very natural movement. Now, it's designed for the house, and it's a very radical approach compared to the other bots, which are very stiff, very industrial, and are very hard surfaces. So this is designed to be soft, which is the reason why you have that suit around it. It's soft and cushy. But unfortunately, because of it, we cannot tell anything that's going on. Every other bot, I can tell you exactly how the shoulder works, exactly how the elbow is going, because they're exposing everything that's there. This one, we have absolutely no idea, short of looking a little bit at the hands. I can glean a few things on what's going on there. But the movement is just unbelievably fluid. Yeah. And quite natural. It's just something else. Yes. Mm-hmm. Now,
I just want to add that the key thing for everybody to understand is, you and I've interviewed Bert Bornick in the past. In this interview, he revealed a few things about their strategy, which is very different than any other company out there. What he said was he really believes strongly that if you're a robot company and you don't go straight to the home, you're not home first, you're making a massive mistake, right? He said that all the other companies, right, they're all showing you that the bot can work in the factory. because it's a controlled environment, because it's a very specific one task. And these bots will be able to do that. He's saying what he's learned is that for neural net to be most optimized to learn all the tasks as fast as possible, you have to have a breadth of tasks, and the home is where you can have it first. So when you're looking at this,
have a lot.
This is designed first for the home. That's why it's fuzzy, it's soft, it's safe. You're not worried about this too. It's light. And he spent a lot of time on that movement to be so fluid to make it much more something that you're at home, you're willing to do, right? What's your thoughts on what he just said there? Yeah.
Yes. And so if you're designing for the home, you have to take a very different approach. People say it's really hard to design for the home. It's like, yeah, because it's going to be soft. And it's really hard to make soft things. And we can see that all the other humanoid bots that are out there that are really designed for industrial applications are very hard on the outside. And they're also very heavy. So most of them are like 50 to 60 kilograms. This is 30 kilograms. So in Freedom units, that's 66 pounds. I mean, that is extremely light. It's very light. No adult is 66 pounds. So that means it can fall on you and it's not going to hurt. Plus, it's made out of very soft, cushy materials. But there's more than just being made out of soft materials. You can also be hurt if something swings or hits you very, very hard. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of compliance in the actuation that they have here, that if it does bump into you, it's not going to suddenly be kind of solid and you're going to rebound off of that. And a lot of this is a design approach. So clearly they're having to use a lot of tendons, because you'll see the wrist is not bulky. And the reason why the wrist isn't bulky is it doesn't have the actuators there. All the other bots, the actuators are there, and you have all the motors. It appears through some sort of magic, and this is what I'd love to know how he's doing it, is they've moved everything back, maybe either very high in the arm or potentially the torso, and they are using tendon drives. So the tendons are going through, and for the most part, you have a very almost hollow kind of construction in the arm, just allow the tendons to go through. And the hand is remarkable. I'm looking at that, and that is probably like what the 22 degree of freedom hand is that Elon is talking about. So I'm pretty sure all the actuation they have is easily at least back in the forearm, if not further back. And we can see a little bit of how the wrist mechanism works. We can get kind of a close-up on the hand, and I can see it's got what looks like a simple cardan joint, where I can see there's a joint down the middle like this for doing the yaw. And you can also see the one that goes across here for this, kind of like what the Optimus wrist is. And then figuring out, well, how are they doing it? And, Optimus could be, does it actually with what looks like little pistons that are moving back and forth to be able to do it. They're doing it what's more like horse's reins, like, you're pulling a line here and let the other one and back and forth, which is what the tendons are doing to allow that to move. And then they've figured out some other way to get the fingers in there, because the fingers are first of all, the size of all the fingers are different. The fingers do not have the same size. Mm-hmm. They have all the knuckles that are on there. So they're not missing a knuckle. They've got all three knuckles. And it appears that they can probably do this kind of movement, the splaying motion as well. The thumb is very movement. And that palm, you look at that palm, is very thin. It's not bulky like a lot of the others you have. It is a beautiful hand. When you look at that can provide them the dexterity. So compared to the fact that the first generation Eve was just like these pinchers, to go from that to what they have here, it's like, that is remarkable. And if that's all we're seeing and is indicative of what's going on throughout the whole structure, then it is really going to be remarkable. This is their
first generation that they had for a year. They were selling this.
And look at the shoulders. It looks like a linebacker, doesn't it? They've trimmed that shoulder design down.
And then you can see even muscles all over the place. But this Neo had wheels, and it had pinchers, but they were selling it for security purposes around buildings. And then they knew that they were going to go humanoid, but they did this for neural net training. So all of these Eves, first of all, they had 30, I think, plus 20 for sure. And they're all autonomously
something like that. Mm-hmm.
They know how to plug themselves in. So they were learning how to do that. So this is funny because this guy, Bernd, obviously this one guy on X said, hey, come back to me when these things can do your laundry, can do your dishes. And so Bernd shared this. He said, well, there you go. I mean, it's pretty impressive. It really looks like it's so fluid. It looks like it's so, like with limited
transferring. Yes. From one hand to the other.
Grabbing. And then he's even said just that closing of a cupboard door like that. He said cabinet door. He said that, sometimes you would position your body differently. You might want to use your elbow.
Okay, pause right there. I put a tweet out on this that said, humanoid bot forces human to make him an
Like a
omelet at
gun?
gunpoint.
A finger?
Yeah, so I just saw that very
That's
last
great.
thing and just like, whoops, I noticed the finger that's on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so learning all those things, and he's brought it home to his house and has been using it a lot to train on these things.
Yeah.
Now we know they have two locations. They have a major center in Sunnyvale, California, in Silicon Valley, and also in Moss, Norway, which is a little bit south of Oslo, still on the Oslo fjord there. And so where do you think this was done? In Sunnyvale, or do you think this was done in Norway?
It does not look like it's a European kitchen, but I mean, obviously it could be it's a mock-up of a kitchen, obviously.
I'm looking at the outlets that are there, and those look like European outlets, the Northern European outlets. They look like the 220s that are there. That's all. That's my guess. But yeah, I mean, otherwise it's kind of hard to tell. That could look like a European kitchen. They kind of have that look as well. So that was my guess. You know, there we see it's tethered. I'm not sure if that's a power supply. Seems to be pretty thin for a power supply. That might just be either for protection in case it does fall over, or maybe for grabbing some data, something like that. But more or less, it's probably a type of harnessing that they're having. Some specs about this that we've learned from the humanoid hub is that, the weight is 30 kilograms. The height is 5'5". So that means it's like an inch shorter than the figure bot, and about 3 inches shorter than Optimus. But taller than Atlas, which is at 5 feet. And again, that's kind of a standard height that's not bad to have. We'll be able to carry, I think, 45 pounds, but deadlift maybe 70 or something like that. So that's pretty. I mean, it's like you think about the strength, the weight there. It's like, holy cow! It's like, I can barely lift my own weight, and this thing is like getting ready to lift more of its own. The walking speed looks like will be about 2.5 miles per hour. However, it can run up to 7 miles per hour. So it's like, wow, with a battery life that I think that they said might be like from 2 to 4 hours. And that surprised me that they went that high. Because remember when we spoke to him, he was saying that most of the customers were fine with like about 90 minutes of useful activity out of it, because then you would just charge up. And if you could get it charged back up in 20 minutes, that's fine. So I'm not sure how they're getting that much length out of it, unless, they get some, because the battery pack, like the Optimus battery pack, you're already at 10 kilograms. And then it's like, okay, so now what the other 20 is everything else. How do you get to that? So the only way is like you got to have a smaller battery pack. And so Optimus is supposed to be about 8 hours, so you cut it in half. Might even be less than that. And the other is that maybe it is just really energy efficient in what it does, and is not requiring a whole lot of power to be able to get that. So. That's also remarkable.
Let's go back to his,
and we're hoping to see more and hear
decision
more.
to go after the home first. Let's listen into what he said here.
We want to create an abundance of labor. So I just think the quickest way to get there is to go through these consumer domestic use cases, because it will give you the most intelligent system, and it will give you the largest fleet size, which very disruptive products started in enterprise. It's very rare. Everything starts in consumer, and then it trickles down into enterprise.
Today, we'll be interviewing. So this is what he said, right? Okay, so he made a very bold claim. We're going to be going straight to consumer first, because we think that anything that disrupts always goes from consumer first, not from enterprise down. And then he said that anybody who does the opposite, who goes to the factory first, and the reason he said is that if you go to the factory, you're doing one task to do, to let's say pick and place, and you're learning one thing. And what he's learned in neural nets, he said, is that if you learn multiple things all at the same time, all these different tasks, like here you saw picking up and moving a glass, or cutting a tomato or something like that, or picking up a bag, all of these combine better to make a better, faster program. Now, the big claim that he made was even bigger claim than everything he just said here, was he said that he would make a bet that he would be in a factory before the others would get to the factory. And the reason why he believes that...
Now, that's interesting.
Yeah, because if I train my bot first on a home, get it out there, and volume, by the way. And so one of the reasons he built it this way It's going to be very low cost, very easy to build, right? It's not overbuilt. It's it looks like a toy. In fact, in some cases, it looks so light and looks like a little stuffed animal. But it's because it's low cost. He's going to create in mass volume. He's going to get to the home first, and then he says that because of what they've learned, he believes he will be in mass scale at the factory before the others able to go mass scale.
And that will be really interesting. And you can understand the rationale because we've seen this movie before. The Waymo Cruise approach was like, we're just going to try to solve San Francisco.
Right.
And Tesla was like, no, we're doing everything.
Yes.
We're going to geofence it. We're going to use LiDAR. We're going to use all this mapping. And Bernd is like, maybe learn something from it. Now, the thing about this announcement, this is Neo Beta. And they're in the press announcement is they're going to have like limited releases this year to select individuals to bring into their homes. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like the idea of like, okay, we're putting FSD beta out there because we want to start training the fleet.
Yeah, I raised my hand and I told them.
So maybe they listen.
I'll be a beta tester.
Yeah,
you and I.
Me too.
You and I.
Me too. Me too. Exactly. So we'll go around there, and that could be very interesting to sort of see what they're able to get from that. Now, the question is like, factories are harsh environments, right? The home, not so much. And there are very different requirements between the two. So it'll be interesting to see whether they need to beef it up for the factory or whether it be sufficient and whether they just have, other kind of protection on there. Now, already you can see there's no pinch points in that thing. It's like really hard to find
there is no pinch point.
But so you would just make sure you have some sort of garment that you would put over that to get a little bit of protection from whatever you have on there. You want to make sure there's nothing that's going to easily snag or get caught on sharp edges around there. But still, the hands is going to be an issue for everyone. So those are very nice hands, some of the best hands I've seen. But again, you can see they're very open. That it's a type of hands that you work in an industrial environment. You're going to get dust in there. You're going to get grease in there. You're going to get everything else. So you're going to have to provide some sort of additional protection to the hands to be able to work in a variety of things. But not all factories are the same. Some factories are light industrial production where it's very, very simple, and others are extremely dirty, where you need to have a lot of protection. Mm-hmm. So it could be that if you get the neural net, and it seems if we look at this, what was your impression?
I just thought it looked so smooth. It's probably smoother than any of the human bots I've seen. It does look like a human. It moved like a human.
But beyond that,
I don't know.
It seemed to be empathetic.
Oh, okay?
It was observing the scene.
Let's take a look again.
And now, so this is the thing where we just take a leap of faith here, all right?
Yeah,
assuming that this is the bot behaving on its own and not something that was a scripted demo, okay? The bot is able to tell the intent. Yeah. Oh, the backpack is down there. She's tying her shoes. She must be getting ready to go somewhere. And he makes this indication, kind of looks at her, and then with a little bit of sign language is able to sort of indicate, do you want me to pick up the backpack? And it's like, oh, yeah, sure. So
pointed,
that seemed incredibly
and he
natural
nodded
to me,
his head.
And if that is the bot doing that, that is remarkable. That goes beyond the fact that just that the whole thing is very smooth motion and everything else. Now there have been some threads out there that Bernd has today talking about the walking and everything else. He did show the walking and how they are using a neural net and everything else for it. So these are not heuristics. All that motion is, coming from training, the training set, which probably was a lot of telerobotic, a lot of demonstration. What he talked about is that they do a little bit of simulation, but remember he said they found it's actually faster to do it in real life than to do it in simulation. They get results much quicker that way.
Yeah, he said that.
If this is the results of their training, it is something else. I mean, even to the leaning of the head and stuff like that. Now, maybe they practice it many, many, many times, and it's in its training set that's kind of how you behave. But I mean, and then when she walked off, he was like heartbroken. Didn't
you
it
might
look
be
like
reading
that?
too much into it.
And that's why he waved her back. No. I mean, he was just like, wait a minute, my friend just left.
Let's take a look at the press release. So this is their press release. So it looks like that they have two headquarters, San Francisco and Norway. And so 1X, a pioneer in humanoid robotics, unveils, they call it Neo Beta, a prototype of its bipedal humanoid designed for use. So it's still a prototype. represents a significant advance in robotics, moving beyond traditional stiff robots to humanoids with bio-inspired designs. Interesting. And that's where I think that he's referring to tendons rather than metal actuators that can safely work among people. So
and where else did we hear someone say the same idea
Tesla.
of like bio-inspired designs?
Tesla, yeah.
Yeah.
But these guys actually were. He told us he was doing this, a year plus ago, that this was his decision to go straight to that, and it's got to be safe among people. The launch marks a major milestone. This company transitions from conceptual to bringing humanoid robots into consumer households. We show how NEO is safe to work among people. So again, they've repeated that twice because that is a big advantage, a big differentiator. Because I think I safe to say that none of the humanoid bots that we've interviewed can say today that they're safe to work with people. I think they all think that within a year or two they'll get their safety certification. But at this point, if this is true, this is a beta. We don't know. Has been designed to be produced at scale. This is what I was talking about. He had mentioned that, right? Part of the reason why it looks so flimsy, thin, and all that's because I'm going to produce thousands of these, and I think thousands of them matter more than our priority safety. So again, he's repeated this 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Did he say it's 5 times? 5 times in this one thing, safety. Look at that. Yeah, and so what you just said, right?
And it's difficult.
It's going to introduce it in homes. It's going to get feedback, real world settings. We're deploying a limited number in selected homes for R&D. So that's where they're at.
Yeah, and the thing is that all these bots need safety certification. So even the Tesla bot is not certified right now to be able to operate, let's say, directly around humans. So if you put it in the factory, same with figures, that they had to cordon that area off to make sure it wasn't near humans when it was doing that, because they're working on that process and they have to design it. And it's a pretty strict protocol on what you have to go through. So a lot of it comes to you have to think about that very early on. And so Bernd's looked at a lot of things, and the others, he's all thinking, we want to be able to build this at scale. We want to build it for the price of a car, not a luxury car, but a normal car that anyone would be able to afford to use. I
think they're going to do it even cheaper than that.
And so definitely. But at the same time, it's like they could probably build it cheaper than that, but they could charge luxury car prices for it, guarantee it, if it's able to do the things that we're seeing right there, because that is absolutely remarkable already as like an assistant in the home, and possibly a little bit more than that.
Yeah, it's a race, So then somebody was asking, what about the walking? When you and I, again, we talked to Bernd before, and he said, again, very interesting. He's so opinionated, and he said that actually walking is not important. He said walking is just getting the hands closer to the activity. It's the hands. I'm not sure that they are the leader in the hands. We know that Tesla, you can tell me, but Tesla says 22 degrees. All their engineering, 50% of it's in the hands. We know that Sanctuary has always said the hands are the ones that are most important. But so these guys have downplayed the walking. He said if you look at the home, the walking is not that important. So somebody asked him about it, and he said this. He said, our approach to walking is fully learned all the way down to torques. I don't know what that means. You can explain that to me. Still work in progress, and the goal is to have it walking and running as efficiently and natural as a human by end of year. First baby steps. Okay, that's funny. But so clearly this has become their focus this year. And you and I have shown a lot of other Chinese robots. And what they did was they seemed to, all of last year and all the beginning of this year, was all about walking and running. That was the thing that they were focused on first.
And jumping.
So tell me, and jumping. So tell me what you're seeing here.
Okay, so obviously the very first baby step. So we're not seeing much, but we can see proof that it can do it. And it seems that Bernd is pretty confident that they have the capability to be able to go at it. So it's designed for walking speed of 2.5 miles per hour, which is exactly what you'd want in a factory or home, but with the potential to run up to 7 miles per hour, which will be quite interesting. And he also mentioned the capability to jump. So he has already said in the past that, the feet are about manipulating the ground. And that they are a lot about positioning the hands to where they need to be, but at the same time helping the hands do what it has to. So the hands needed to get down to be able to grab the backpack. and that required the legs to be able to do that movement. So it's got balance. It seemed very stable. We can see the feet really didn't want to move around, but that seems like that's something that will probably be coming. But again, he says by the end of the year, I'm pretty confident they can pull something like that off because the movement already was pretty good. So
but
they seem to be pretty fast. Now, as far as
it
the
was
motor
only
trucks,
2 seconds, Scott.
He's saying, and
there's a reason why they only showed you a 2-second clip.
Yes. And again, it's just the baby steps, but it seems to have good balance when it's stationary. Because when it went down there, your center of gravity, everything is moving around a lot, and it seemed to be very stable and focused on it. So again, it's like they're really saying your legs are like just another set of arms. Your feet are hands that are down on the ground that are just kind of grasping it and being able to put it on there. When he's talking about right down to the torques, he's basically saying end to end. So the whole walking that they're going through is they're trying to figure out not only what the joint values need to be, but what the torques at the joints need to be able to perform a particular task. Either it's a walking speed or when you're standing a particular way. So they're just learning to get all that information in there, as opposed to using some sort of algorithm which will calculate it for you. So, part of the inputs is forces and torques.
Yeah, gotcha.
Torques and positions, velocities, torques.
All neural net learned. So this Eve, when they were first doing this, he was saying that it can still bend. It's got knees, and they didn't think that the feet and walking was so critical, and that's why they did it this way. They got out there as fast as they can. So what do you think about their strategy, Scott? This whole thing, what they're doing. They first rolled this out. They made many of them, 20, 30 of them. They look silly, like they look like they're childish. They did taking a complete different approach, right? Less metal, it's home safety. And they're only now working on the hands, and they're now only rolling it out to beta. Do you think this is an interesting strategy, a smart strategy?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing is you have to prove a concept. Everything's been about the AI. It's nice to have good hardware, but if you are not able to train it, or you don't know how to do it, it's just going to be useless. So that was certainly like a prototype to go through and validate their AI strategy and the approach that they want to take. And then if that seemed to be pretty good and they were getting a lot of good results from it, it's like, okay, we can improve the hardware. And of course, they learned a few things. Is they made the assumption that most people, it's like, wheels are just the easiest, go ahead and put the wheels. And in the end, Bernd told us, it turns out that building these mobile wheel platforms is almost harder than going ahead and putting the legs in. And the other thing is, the wheel platforms is like, it seems like really easy, low center of gravity. We can put as many batteries as we want down there, can roll around. Well, the thing is, it's only really great on flat surfaces. And you can see, and this is, if you go to Scandinavian countries, between every door, there's always like a little lip that you have to go over, so that when the doors are closed in the wintertime, you don't get drafts. And that's the first thing I noticed when I was over in Scandinavia is I tripped on one of those things. I wasn't expecting it. So that means, your wheel bot constantly has to go over these little ramps and everything. Whereas when you're walking, you don't have to worry about that. You can go upstairs very easily. But he also talked about the other thing is like sometimes just reaching up in a cabinet. Remember, he said, you're leaning and doing everything else. And when you get that with the wheel bot, you can't get the reaction forces you need and you can't get close enough. Brett Adcock has mentioned the same thing, that a lot of times in the factory, a lot of these tasks you want to do, you got to get your leg placement in a particular way, and you can't do it with something that's wheeled. So he's found, which is remarkable, that you can actually have a bipedal bot, and the effort of putting it in that is no more than going ahead and putting on wheels, which was a shocking revelation for me. And again, that's why you go through design iterations, is that you learn these things as you go along.
Yeah, that's right. He had told us before when it was this one here, that with a wheel, it can't get as close to the cabinet. And then he said that if it's funny, when you open a cabinet like that, they've learned, because they've been doing this. See how he used his wrist to open it up, pulled it open? He said that that's the kind of stuff that, you need to learn. And there's all these things that he thinks that they're far ahead from everybody. Sometimes you use your elbow, he said, sometimes you use your wrist. And that's what he's like. He thinks that this is the way to go.
Very odd. Yes.
Many bots in the home with a million infinity, like here, I'm going to grab a towel and I'm going to wipe a spill. These things, it's much better. So what do you think about that, right? I think we've heard that from several AI experts, right? That they've learned now that the breadth of training matters more than perfecting one specific task.
Yes, it's cross-training. So the more you learn something else, the better you will be in a specific task. Which may not seem, at first you may not expect that kind of result, but we all know that even from athletics and stuff like that, if you want to get really good at something, you want to do all this other cross training as well, because those skills kind of come in and will actually make you better at whatever it is you're trying to do in general. I mean, think about even chess players. Bobby Fischer, he used to jog and stuff like that. That was part of his training. You know, it's like, what's that got to do with playing chess? It's like, it's stamina, mental focus, all these other kinds of things. So I would see the same thing here, is that the more tasks you show it, the better it's going to be overall. And the other thing is, it's not really about you wanting it to do a specific task, because every task is always a little bit different. It's never exactly like what was in the training set. It's the ability to generalize, to be able to kind of see a task that you've never quite seen before, and then from that, be able to figure out how to solve it. Now, the question is, does it just become an interpolation of a bunch of different solutions that happen to work for it? Or does at some point get a little bit creative because it's seen so many different things, it becomes more of a problem solving thing. So part of it would be, is there going to be emergent behavior we see? Some kind of things that does it, was absolutely not in the training set. You got exposed to it and suddenly got very clever and figured out that this is the best way to do a particular task.
All right. So this is March 2024. It was still called Eve at the time. It had pinchers, it had wheels, but you can see that they were training it end-to-end autonomy. They were training all sorts of things. And now today, which is 4 months later, they've got this, which is a humanoid Neo. It's got hands and fingers. It looks like actually, effective. It works to be able to grab bags, able to move glasses. It seems to move with smoothness. It looks a little bit more clean. Again, like that could all be fake that we don't know, but it sure looks pretty impressive. And we don't know what the tether is, right? We don't know if that is, it looks more like power.
It could just be safety harnessing. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I would think it's more likely just something, if it falls down, just to make sure it doesn't hit the floor.
Yeah.
That's possible.
I just find it funny. Like there's even like underwear, some sort of mark here to the butt.
Yeah. Exactly there, which is probably definitely some sort of basically the pelvic structure that they have around there for the legs. You just see it poking up. But think about it compared to what we've seen with other robots around the pelvic area. It's very human-like. Whereas the others, we have these big motors and actuators sticking out there that
like wearing a
would not be able to sit down or do anything
looks
else.
Like it's wearing a hoodie. Okay. All right. Well, so thank you so much. This is Eve 1X, Norway company, San Francisco company. They're going straight to the home. And this is very different from anything else we've ever seen. Thank you so much, Scott. That was great for you to give us your thoughts and tell us a lot about this bot. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Hopefully straight to my home.
Raise our hands. We'll be the first to beta test this. Okay. See you soon. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.